Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to another Star Wars news update. An exclusive by Vanity Fair for the Andor series just dropped, and we've got to talk about it. Tony Gilroy, the showrunner, has revealed some new details, and shockingly, he says what you think you know about the Andor series is all wrong. He even teases how this show is going to change how fans see Rogue One, which as we know, takes place 5 years after Andor. Now this exclusive brings with it some vital plot information, and the biggest takeaway of all, the great news, is that Andor is going to document the darkest period of the galaxy's history, when the Empire was at its peak, what we sometimes refer to as the Dark Times. It's going to be gritty, bleak, and we're about to see some of the worst atrocities committed by the Empire, and at the same time, we're going to be shown the glimmer of hope that is the work of the various segments of the rebellion. But one thing is clear from this update, this is going to be the most unique of all the Disney Plus shows, and the showrunner Tony Gilroy wants you to know it. Now this is such an important interview, and Tony goes really hard in this one. There's a lot to break down my dear friends, so let's get straight into it. I'm super excited. As I've been saying guys, don't sleep on the Andor series. There are going to be so many surprises, and as Tony Gilroy even says, prepare to have what you think you know subverted. It's a very paranoid world we live in. That's how showrunner Tony Gilroy begins to describe the upcoming Star Wars series Andor, based around the early adventures of Diego Luna's Rogue One hero. The 12-episode show is set to launch on Disney Plus later this summer, and if you remember the other day, Vanity Fair released the story Star Wars: The Rebellion will be televised, and in that, both Tony Gilroy and Diego Luna spoke about the series. But in this new bonus story, the two also reveal some new details, while also correcting a few rumours about the show that have circulated among fans. So they start by saying something that I've brought up in the past: don't expect Alan Tudyk's blunt-speaking droid K2SO in Season 1. Tony Gilroy says, we don't have Alan Tudyk, not yet anyway, but fear not. Prep for the second season is already underway, and the story of how Cassian meets K2SO is going to be told then. Gilroy says, it is a second season, but it's really, for me, the second half of the novel. He says, this first season is about him, and he's talking about Andor becoming a revolutionary, and the second 12 episodes takes him into Rogue One. They also say the series is going to make Star Wars obsessives. That means the diehard fans like you and me reevaluates key tenets they've come to believe, all while trying to draw in fans who aren't as well versed in galactic history. And then Vanity Fair give what they call a fair warning, a spoiler warning. They say there are some light spoilers ahead about how the Andor series starts out. They say Gilroy is known for writing the first 4 Bourne thrillers, and he received Oscar nominations for both writing and directing Michael Clayton. He got involved with Star Wars by helping to rework Rogue One during its reshoots. And then they mentioned some key themes that we're going to see in the Andor show: secrets, conspiracies, and claustrophobic distrust, all 3 which are hallmarks of Tony Gilroy's style. Then we have a comment from Michelle Rejwan, a producer on Andor. Tony is probably the best there is when it comes to the spy genre and bringing that into the Star Wars universe. She then says, Andor looks through the lens of this character that had such a huge impact on Star Wars history, but who has a very personal, very rich, very committed investment in this fight. And as we know based on the previous Vanity Fair article, the Andor series is going to show us that he's been in this fight since he was 6 years old. So then they come on to Diego Luna, who emphasizes that the show will be about the transformation of a fearful man. And we don't really see that fear in Rogue One. By that point, he's a very evolved rebel. He knows what he wants, he knows the risks that come with everything, and he's willing to take them in the name of the rebellion. But the quote here from Diego Luna is, I believe science fiction and stories that happen in a galaxy far, far away are a great tool to comment on our world, on your life and my life, and the way we interact. And what he's saying here is that the Andor show is going to be very political, and some of the themes that we see in the real world are going to reflect in that show. Star Wars has always fundamentally been political. I know some folks don't like real world politics to come into fiction, but that's what George Lucas's vision always was, and so Diego Luna is teasing that's also going to be the case here. He then goes on to say, we need to explore the revolutionary that we can become to change things, to stop war, to make this world a livable place. So Andor talks about that. He says, I think it can inspire a lot of people on how much you can do by yourself. Rogue One, as those who've seen the 2016 movie know, is actually the conclusion of Cassian Andor's story. It's set just before the events of 1977's original Star Wars A New Hope, and tells the self-sacrificing story of the rebel spies who stole the Death Star plans that allowed Luke Skywalker to reduce the planet-killing battle station to a field of glowing debris. They're saying things we already know, but Andor will be set primarily 5 years before that mission in Rogue One, although the show will flash back even further to when Cassian's childhood homeworld first falls under the tyrannical control of the Empire, and the Empire completely destabilized Vest. So basically it's deeply personal for Cassian. So then Tony Gilroy says his adopted home will become the base for our whole first season, and we watch that place become radicalized. Then we will see another planet that's completely taken apart in a colonial kind of way. The Empire is expanding rapidly. They're wiping out anyone who's in their way. And just to say, my dear friends, Ben Mendelsohn, who plays Krennic, is also rumoured to be in this show. Not to mention whisperings that we could even see Ian McDiarmid as Emperor Palpatine. The Imperial Subplot is going to be just as important in this series as it was in Rogue One. So it then says, these are strategic moves for the dark side, asserting dominance over worlds that are manufacturing centres that supply raw materials or provide other vital supplies they need to maintain control. They're taking over the corporate planets, Gilroy says. They're tightening up their supply chains. While the Empire doesn't destroy, it consumes. It's all the ways that oppression can pull a culture apart and destroy it, Gilroy says. And to move on to the next paragraph, Tony Gilroy points out something really interesting. He talks about how we shouldn't have any assumptions about the character of Cassian Andor, even going as far as saying he's morally complicated in a really dark way. We don't know the full story and his past. Diego Luna then talks about the sense of belonging being a key theme of this show. He says that feeling of having to move is behind this story, very profoundly and very strong. Not being able to be where you belong, that shapes you as a person, it defines you in many ways and what you're willing to do. But Andor doesn't begin that way. Luna says, what I can tell you is that this guy, he doesn't see further than himself. And then Gilroy jumps in and says Andor is going to explore what it means to be part of a rebellion, right versus wrong, and a lot of moral, ethical questions too. He says in the beginning of it all, Andor could not give a shit about any of that. He's a thief, a ducker, a diver. He has a lot of anger about his childhood and about the Empire, but he has no place to put it. He just doesn't believe in anything at this point. So to fast forward, my dear friends, in the second half of this story, they talk about Genevieve O'Reilly's character Mon Mothma. As we know, she played a younger Mon Mothma in Revenge of the Sith and in Rogue One. She's beloved the fandom over and is a great portrayal of the younger version, and she's back for this series. Not only that, but they say she's going to have a major role in season 1. Vanity Fair say hardcore Star Wars aficionados who hear the name Mon Mothma know immediately who that is. She's returning in Star Wars Andor season 1 in a pretty huge way, and we're going to see how her path crosses with Cassian's. And then we have a quote from Gilroy. I have the sheet in front of me. I have 211 speaking parts in this show, but there's probably 75 people in there who really matter, and there's at least a dozen seriously important characters that will be carrying forward into the second season. It's a huge orchestral Dickensian ensemble cast, with Diego at the middle of it, and Genevieve, which is Mon Mothma, in the middle of another part of it. They intersect. I'm not going to get into how they intersect, but they do have an intersection. And then he says they don't meet until the second half. Her character is still in the galaxy's leadership class on the capital world of Coruscant and is trying to navigate the turmoil of the Emperor's new autocracy while quietly fomenting opposition, but Andor doesn't start there. And this is where things get a little more spoilerish. He says, our show starts with a very simple, almost film noir situation for a thief, a skeevy kind of guy who gets in big trouble trying to sell something to save his ass, but someone's been watching him, a rebel talent scout, and he's sort of recruited on the worst day of his life. And that storyline focuses on Luna and two unspecified characters played by Stellan Skarsgård and Adria Arjona. And then another major reveal in episode 4, we leave there and we begin to expand out. Tony Gilroy finishes by saying he aims to please the diehards and the casuals, but it's not always easy. But one thing he notes is that we have to let go of everything we think we know. In his own words, he says, what you know, what you've been told, what's on Wikipedia, and I can't believe he called them out, what you've been telling each other is really all wrong. So by the sounds of things, this show is going to subvert all of our expectations, completely breaking down assumptions and giving us something very fresh and very unique compared to the other Disney Plus shows. A really fascinating article. It's made me super excited for Andor more than I already was. As you know, I cover all of the news as it comes out, but this is the first time we've had so much information in one drop. And before people complain and say they're going to subvert expectations, that's not a good sign. Tony Gilroy does promise this show is going to please the diehards, but we do have to let go of expectations and kind of see what he does with it, and I trust the creative process. We're going to see the full story of Andor play out, from when he was a young boy to where we see him in Rogue One, and as we know guys, there are going to be 3 seasons in total. So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this one, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and go and check out earlier's video where we talk about a new scoop for Obi-Wan Kenobi. That drops this Friday, and Star Wars Celebration is Thursday through Sunday. I'll see you in the next one guys. May the Force be with you.